The tea in the radar room has been forgotten long enough to grow bitter. Corporal Min doesn't notice. Beneath layers of reinforced concrete outside Hanoi, the monsoon pounds the ground with a relentless, animal fury, rain so dense it feels capable of tearing aircraft from the sky. Inside the bunker, radar scopes glow a dull green, calm and vacant. It is December 1972. For weeks, American bombers have stayed away from the capital. The air defense network, born in Soviet design rooms, refined by North Vietnamese necessity, has hardened into something almost mythic. A ceiling of steel and mathematics. Nothing gets through. Captain Tran rests his boots against the console, arms crossed. At 32, he is the senior officer on shift. The youngest technician, barely old enough to shave, asks whether full combat readiness should continue through the storm. Tran snorts quietly. In this weather? Even Americans aren't that brave. The air smells of damp uniforms, tobacco smoke, and overheated electronics, vacuum tubes humming like tired insects. Thunder reverberates through the concrete, deep and close. Or at least, they think it's thunder. Outside, the surface-to-air missile crews wait in vain. The SA-2 batteries are blind tonight. Visibility is non-existent. Cloud ceiling pressed flat against the earth. Winds violent enough to shred bomber formations before a single missile could be fired. The weather itself has become a weapon, doing what months of missile launches have already accomplished. Turning the sky over Hanoi into a place pilots fear. American crews call it the most dangerous airspace on Earth. Tonight, it isn't airspace at all. It's chaos, wind shear, rain walls, electrical storms that would kill long before enemy fire ever could. Tran glances at his watch. 2,000 hours. The reduced crew runs diagnostics out of habit, not urgency. Confidence fills the room like smoke. Since October, they have broken the enemy's rhythm. Daylight raids are gone. The bombers now come only at night. Only high. Only in carefully timed waves that give defenders time to finish a cigarette between engagements. And the system proves it works. The radar shows exactly what it should. Nothing. Storm cells pulse and dissolve in soft green light. Rain creates false echoes, illusions every trained operator learns to read instinctively. Tran recognizes them all, every phantom, every trick the atmosphere can play. What fills the screen now is pure meteorology. Perfect. Lightning flashes somewhere far above the clouds. The bunker lights dim, then recover. Normal. The backup generators growl to life, steady and reassuring. Everything is under control. The Americans are grounded. Hanoi sleeps. The tea has gone cold. Morning will come soon enough. Min reaches for a fresh cigarette. His hand never reaches the cigarette. The first detonation lands somewhere north of the city, 3 kilometers out. The bunker doesn't tremble. It lurches. Concrete dust spills from seams that haven't shifted since the bunker was sealed years ago. A porcelain cup skids off a console and shatters, tea splashing across the floor like spilled ink. Then the power vanishes. 2 seconds of absolute darkness. 2 seconds that feel endless. When emergency lights snap on, bathing the room in harsh red, every man is already standing. No one speaks. Hands hover inches above switches and dials. All eyes lock onto the radar displays. They show nothing. Only storm interference. Static blooms. Ghost weather. Then the second explosion. Closer. Then a third. The Long Bien Bridge arches across the Red River like a rib cage of steel. Arched, past tense. By 02:15 hours, entire sections are folding inward, dropping into black water below. At Yen Vien, the rail yards where supplies from the north are marshaled erupt into overlapping fireballs, rails twisting like wire. At Kep Airfield, fuel tanks rupture. Flames climb hundreds of feet into the rain, turning the monsoon into hissing steam, the night into daylight. Every strike is deliberate. Every target reinforced. Every target officially unreachable in weather like this. The detonations come before the noise. Survivors, fewer than anyone expects, will later describe the same impossible order of events. First, the ground opens. Then, seconds later, a rolling sound, like distant thunder moving away before the brain can place it. There are no sirens. No warnings. No time. Workers never reach shelters because no one believes there is anything to hide from. The system is supposed to see everything. North Vietnamese air defense doctrine is layered, precise, proven. Early warning radar should spot incoming aircraft over Laos, buying half an hour. Missile batteries should force bombers high, predictable. Fighter interceptors should finish the job. Tonight, all three layers fail at once. Missiles launch blindly into cloud walls. Anti-aircraft guns rake empty sky. Fighters scramble toward coordinates that mean nothing. They hit nothing. Below them, the war's infrastructure burns. The Hanoi thermal power station takes multiple direct hits. Transformers detonate in showers of sparks that scatter through the rain like warped fireworks. Entire districts lose power, darkness spreading block by block. In that darkness, more explosions. Gia Lam. Van Dien. Bac Mai. Each target separated by miles. Each strike landing within minutes. Too precise. Too clean. The numbers don't add up. B-52s move in formations. They announce themselves on radar, massive and unmistakable. They drop in patterns. This is not a pattern. This is something else entirely. At Hanoi Bay Airfield, the MiG-21s wait on the soaked concrete like hunting dogs held too long on the leash. Pilots sit strapped into their cockpits, visors down, engines spooled and ready. The turbines burn hot fuel into the rain, waiting for instructions that never arrive. There are no intercept vectors. Ground control has nothing to offer because there is nothing on the scopes to chase. The runway mirrors the glow of distant fires, fuel depots burning beyond the perimeter fence, but no fighters lift off. You cannot intercept what does not exist. According to radar, the sky is empty. By first light, Soviet technical advisors move through the wreckage carrying radiation meters and Geiger counters, quietly checking a possibility no one wants to name. Nuclear weapons leave signatures. These strikes do not. The accuracy suggests guided weapons. Precision like cruise missiles. But cruise missiles do not drop 2,000-pound bombs. The crater geometry implies steep attack angles, near vertical energy transfer. Dive bombing. Yet nothing dives through monsoon cloud at zero visibility. One advisor kneels in the mud at the Hanoi rail switching yard, measuring blast scarring and debris spread. He works silently, calculating vectors, angles, terminal velocity. When he finishes, he closes his notebook and doesn't write anything else. This aircraft, he says at last, was flying lower than 300 meters. In this weather. At over 900 kilometers per hour. His Vietnamese counterpart stares at him, rain dripping from his helmet. What aircraft can do that? The advisor doesn't answer immediately. He is in his late 40s. He flew ground attack missions in Europe decades earlier. He helped design the layered air defense doctrine meant to prevent exactly this scenario. In a single night, he has watched it fail completely. He looks back at the crater and finally says the truth no one wants to hear. None. No aircraft should be able to do this. The rain keeps falling. The fires refuse to go out. And somewhere in the wreckage, someone finds something that breaks the silence. Metal. Not twisted wreckage from a known bomber. Not missile fragments. A section of wing structure, half buried in mud, leaking hydraulic fluid. Its shape makes no sense. The sweep angle is aggressive, far sharper than anything used on American heavy bombers. Built for speed. For penetration. But the mechanisms attached to it tell another story. Complex hydraulics. Moving surfaces designed to generate lift at very low altitude and low speed, places where swept wings are inefficient and dangerous. No aircraft combines these traits. It's like discovering racing tires mounted on a farm tractor. The fragment arrives at military intelligence headquarters in the back of a truck, wrapped in tarps soaked black with rain and oil. Analysts gather around it in silence, like doctors examining an anatomy that shouldn't exist. The angles are wrong. The engineering philosophy is unfamiliar. Colonel Le Quang, trained in radar theory in Moscow, proposes the first theory aloud. A new American weapon. Unmanned. Pre-programmed. Terrain following. Flying beneath radar coverage. Cruise missiles. His team measures crater volumes, calculates explosive yield, estimates payload mass. 2,000 pounds per impact. At least. Le Quang runs the numbers again. Then again. Cruise missiles cannot carry that much weight. Not with the fuel required. Not with guidance systems that do not yet exist. He draws a thick line through the words cruise missile on the board. And begins again from nothing. The next hypothesis turns toward invisibility. Perhaps the Americans have built bombers that radar simply cannot see, machines cruising at traditional altitude while Soviet-designed systems search an empty sky. Stealth, perfected. But the ground refuses to cooperate with the theory. Bombs dropped from high altitude fall in clean, obedient arcs. Gravity is honest. These impact scars are not. They show shallow angles, energy delivered almost sideways. Physics does not negotiate. Whatever delivered these weapons was flying low enough to skim treetops, fast enough to outrun its own noise, and accurate enough to strike rail junctions through clouds so thick pilots shouldn't even know where they were. Every calculation collapses under its own weight. SAM battery after action reports arrive written in the language of disbelief. At Site 7, Captain Harris reports a radar contact lasting exactly 1.6 seconds. Not destroyed. Not jammed. Simply erased. The tracking plot shows the object accelerating while descending into terrain that should have ended any aircraft instantly. The fire control computer rejected the solution 3 times, flagging it as corrupted input. Harris launched anyway. His missiles chased a phantom into the hills. Site 12 submits near-identical data. Initial lock at 15 kilometers. Speed approximately 450 knots. Altitude plunging from 1,000 meters to less than 200 in seconds. The descent angle exceeds structural limits for known aircraft. The missiles guide cleanly. They detonate precisely where the target should be. The radar shows the object continuing onward, already kilometers past the intercept point, before the operators understand what they're seeing. Intelligence teams fan out across strike zones, interviewing civilians under tarps and in ruined shelters. The accounts match with unsettling precision. No engine noise before the explosions. Sometimes, only sometimes, a sound afterward. A distant, rolling crack, like thunder arriving late and from the wrong direction. A farmer describes standing in his flooded field as a bridge erupts miles away. He waits for jet noise that never comes. He hears only rain. Another witness claims he saw it once. Just once. A lightning flash outlines a shape against the cloud base, wings bent at angles that seem to change as he watches. Then it is gone, faster than recognition. The explanations multiply. Advanced automation. Terrain mapping radar. Inertial navigation immune to interference. Each theory solves one miracle and creates 3 contradictions. Colonel Pham spreads aerial photographs across his desk. Bomb craters march through defended zones with surgical spacing. Precision strikes delivered in conditions that should reduce bombing to guesswork. He circles the Yen Veen yards, where something threaded between missile sites, below radar coverage, through a storm that grounded their own helicopters. The answer is not courage. It is computation. Inside the nose of an American strike aircraft, terrain-following radar fires pulses dozens of times per second. The system does not merely detect the ground, it predicts it, constructing a three-dimensional map ahead of the aircraft faster than human thought. Valleys. Ridges. Power lines. Everything. The computer calculates continuously, adjusting pitch and power to maintain a narrow envelope of survival. 200 feet. Not 2,000. Not 500. 200 feet between a supersonic aircraft and instant death. The pilot does not fly in the traditional sense. His hands rest lightly on the controls. He supervises. Mathematics flies the machine. The aircraft does not avoid mountains. It pours over them. Rising and falling with the terrain, accelerating through weather that should be fatal, moving faster at treetop height than airliners do far above storms. Radar pulses sketch an invisible world ahead. A rising ridge becomes increased terrain density. The system computes climb rate, energy balance, control deflection. The flight path adjusts before danger exists. And somewhere inside that logic, cold, fast, merciless, is the reason Hanoi burned while the radar screen stayed empty. The flight controls respond before perception catches up. The aircraft begins climbing seconds ahead of the ridge line, rising smoothly on a path no human eye could predict. It crests the terrain with algorithmic exactness, then slips downward into the next valley as the terrain-following system rewrites its understanding of the world, 60 updates every second, endlessly. No hesitation. No fatigue. No fear. Inside the cockpit, the instruments glow a muted red, preserving night vision while rain and darkness erase the outside world. Two men sit side by side. The pilot handles the aircraft only when machines cannot, takeoff, landing, emergencies. The rest of the time, he oversees. Trusts. The weapons systems officer commands the rest. Navigation. Bombing solutions. Radar dialogue. He speaks to the terrain-following system the way a conductor cues an orchestra, interpreting data, correcting tempo, never touching the controls directly. Between them, they replace an entire bomber crew. No navigator hunched over charts. No bombardier peering through optics. No radar officer, no electronic warfare specialist. The F-111 collapses 6 jobs into one integrated nervous system, computers exchanging information faster than language allows. At 200 feet and nearly 600 miles per hour, the ground becomes abstraction. Trees smear into green streaks. Hills rise and vanish with violent speed. Yet inside the cockpit, the motion feels calm. The aircraft rides the terrain in long, fluid waves, lifting and settling as if the earth itself were breathing. No violent jolts. No desperate corrections. Just continuous motion through 3 dimensions while death flashes by within arm's reach. This is how you enter the most protected airspace on the planet. Not from above, where missile radars search the sky and interceptors wait. Not where warning time is measured in minutes. You go underneath. So low that radar beams sweep overhead. So low that missiles cannot react quickly enough. So fast that sound arrives too late to matter. The land itself becomes armor. Speed becomes offense. Computation becomes survival. The Vietnamese radar crews did nothing wrong. Their equipment functioned perfectly. Their training was sound. They lived inside an assumption that bombers were visible, predictable, high. That air defense meant seeing the enemy before he arrived. The F-111 erased that assumption. It emerged from below the radar horizon, from a blind zone everyone acknowledged but no one believed could be exploited at such speed, in darkness, in a monsoon. Terrain-following radar explained how it stayed alive. It did not explain how it changed shape. The wings move, not figuratively, but mechanically. Hydraulics sweep them backward and forward through 16 degrees while the aircraft flies. Fully swept, the F-111 sharpens into a projectile. Drag collapses. Speed becomes priority. Over open terrain, the wings knife back to 72 degrees, and the aircraft surges past Mach 1 as if gravity itself were pulling it forward. Then the target zone approaches. The wings swing forward. Lift increases. Stall speed falls. The aircraft slows, descending back into valleys and river corridors. The Dart becomes a predator built for low-altitude precision. One machine, two identities. Supersonic runner. Low-level hunter. Variable geometry solves a problem aviation had accepted for decades: you either fly fast or you fly slow, but never both well. Fighters trade range for agility. Bombers trade speed for payload. The F-111 rejects the trade. Its wings retreat for penetration, spread for attack, and retreat again for escape, changing personality mid-mission, like a fighter shifting stance in the middle of a bout. And inside that adaptability waits another breakthrough, quieter, deeper. One that explains not just how the aircraft flew, but how it thought. Behind the cockpit, sealed away from rain and fire, sits the real weapon. The avionics compartment holds machines that convert chaos into certainty. Inertial navigation systems spin quietly in darkness, tracking movement without asking the world for permission. No satellites. No radio fixes. No external signals at all. Only gyroscopes, accelerometers, and mathematics, constantly integrating speed and direction, building a living map of position. Even while North Vietnamese jammers scream across every frequency, the aircraft knows exactly where it is. After 600 miles of storm, darkness, and violent terrain, its estimated position is accurate to within tens of meters. The attack computer takes that certainty and fuses it with everything else: terrain radar data, preloaded coordinates, weapon performance tables, wind models. The weapons officer slides a cursor across a glowing display. That simple motion triggers millions of calculations. Release point. Trajectory. Ballistics. Timing. At the precise millisecond, not a moment earlier, not a moment later, the bombs fall. No human judgment. No optical sights. No hope that the math works out. Silicon decides. 2 men replacing 6 is not about efficiency. It is about survival. Fewer crew means a smaller cockpit. Smaller cockpit means lighter structure. Less weight means more fuel. More fuel means greater reach. Greater reach means deeper penetration into territory where survival margins are measured in seconds. Payload grows with every kilogram saved. The F-111 carries a bomb load equal to the World War II B-17, an aircraft that required 10 crew members, defensive gun turrets, and tight formation flying to stay alive. This aircraft carries it alone. At night. In storms. At altitudes that would destroy the bombers it replaced. North Vietnamese defenses were optimized for a different enemy. B-52s flying high, slow, and steady. Massive radar signatures visible from hundreds of kilometers away. Flight paths that could be plotted minutes in advance. Missile crews had time. Fighter controllers had time. Anti-aircraft gunners had time. Everything assumed bombers behaved like bombers. Large. Predictable. Committed. The F-111 broke the category. It flew like a fighter with the payload of a bomber. It navigated like a missile with humans on board. It delivered explosives with the precision of long-range artillery. Every assumption baked into integrated air defense turned into a weakness the moment the target refused to cooperate. The SA-2 guideline missile is not a flawed weapon. It is elegant engineering, Mach 3. 5 acceleration, a massive fragmentation warhead, engagement envelopes reaching stratospheric altitude. Its guidance radar can burn through jamming and chaff, correcting its course mid-flight. Against high-altitude bombers, it is lethal. Against the F-111, it becomes theater. The failure is not accuracy. It is time. The SA-2 needs roughly half a minute from detection to impact. Time to detect. Time to track. Time to compute intercept geometry. Time for the missile to boost, turn, and guide. At altitude, where aircraft cruise at predictable speeds, those 30 seconds create miles of opportunity. At 200 feet and 600 miles per hour, 30 seconds barely exist. The F-111 remains invisible until terrain masking breaks, until it rises just enough to be seen. That moment arrives inside the missile's reaction window. Radar lock occurs at 3 miles. Fire control systems need at least 15 seconds to compute a firing solution. The aircraft covers 3 miles in under 20 seconds. Missiles launch anyway, chasing echoes of something already gone, already sliding into the next valley where terrain erases radar contact again. Even when a missile gets airborne in time, physics turns against it. The SA-2 was designed for thin air and long arcs. At low altitude, dense atmosphere steals its grace. Turns widen. Dive rates suffer. Guidance corrections lag. It cannot follow an aircraft that molds itself to the terrain, accelerating and descending simultaneously. The missile detonates exactly where the target should have been. Where it would have been if it obeyed the rules. The F-111 offers no warning. Radar-guided anti-aircraft guns face the same unforgiving arithmetic. The ZSU-23-4 Shilka, for barrels, radar-controlled, terrifyingly effective against helicopters and slow movers, was never built for this kind of fight. Against a target that crosses its entire engagement zone in under 10 seconds, it becomes scenery. By the time the turrets lose, by the time the fire control radar calculates lead, the aircraft has already passed from approach to escape. The shells chase heat and vapor trails, exploding in air the F-111 abandoned moments earlier. Gunners try everything. They position batteries along suspected corridors. They flood valleys with barrage fire, hoping probability will replace precision. They coordinate overlapping sand coverage, stacking missiles and guns into lethal geometry. Every tactic depends on one thing: reaction time. The F-111 removes it. It appears only long enough for the bombs to fall, then vanishes, gone before countermeasures can complete a single cycle. Not defeated. Not evaded. Outpaced. The tactical failure becomes psychological collapse. Air defense crews sit at their consoles, watching empty radar screens while the city burns. They know the aircraft are there. They know the strikes are real. And they can do nothing about them. Missiles launch at phantoms. MiGs scramble into storms and find nothing. Operators track returns that dissolve before guidance locks. Frustration hardens into desperation. Commanders order guns to fire blindly into cloud. SAM batteries launch on unconfirmed blips. Fighters patrol treetop height, hoping for a visual miracle. None comes. The roles reverse. The defenders become prey, and the predator refuses to be seen. Sound itself becomes a weapon. At sea level, sound travels roughly 760 miles per hour. The F-111 moves at 600 miles per hour, barely 200 feet above the ground. The difference creates something soldiers name before they understand it. They call it the whisper. Not because the aircraft is quiet, but because silence comes first. Picture the geometry. The engines scream, compressors spinning, exhaust blasting at supersonic velocity. The noise is overwhelming near the source. But the aircraft outruns its own sound. A soldier standing a mile from the flight path hears nothing. The jet passes in seconds. The sound waves lag behind, crawling forward. Bombs fall during that silence. They detonate. Only afterward does the roar arrive, 17 seconds too late, rolling across the landscape like misplaced thunder. By then, the aircraft is miles away, already diving into another valley. In mountainous terrain, the effect worsens. Sound reflects, fractures, returns from impossible angles. One pass sounds like many. Arrival noise mixes with departure echoes. Direction becomes meaningless. The war happens all around the defenders, without ever revealing its source. Men write home about it. They whisper about it after raids. They describe the waiting as worse than the explosions. You hear thunder, or think you do, but it comes from the ground, not the sky. Then the blast. Then, finally, the engine noise, fading and useless, offering no direction, no chance to react. Human instinct relies on order. Hear danger. Locate it. Survive. The F-111 destroys that sequence. Effect comes before cause. Detonation before sound. By the time your senses understand what happened, it's already over. And when control disappears, so does confidence. That night over North Vietnam was not just a bombing campaign. It was a demonstration that the rules had changed, that air defense systems built on visibility, prediction, and time were now vulnerable to machines that flew below sight, below expectation, below doctrine. The sky didn't belong to whoever controlled it anymore. It belonged to whoever could disappear inside it. And that was something no radar had been designed to see.